What's the worst coworker you've ever worked with? My coworker likes to initiate conversations, then does long pauses where you go to say something back, then he cuts you off and keeps talking. He has entire conversations almost entirely by himself. He also likes to make changes to my paperwork before it's turned in. Ends up riddled with spelling mistakes while he tries to make the content look smarter. Fortunately, it's all electronically stamped with who made revisions. My boyfriend does that weird conversation thing. Sometimes I just try to talk over him. Sometimes I leave the room. He still doesn't know what I'm talking about when I bring it up. My current suspicion is he's formulating the next sentence during that pause. Either way, it drives his mum and I insane. I couldn't imagine dating someone where when they talk it drives you insane. Fast food. Third shift. The only other employee stayed in the bathroom doing blow. Fast food. Third shift. The only other employee stayed in the bathroom doing blow. You sell drugs to cover most of your living costs via cash, then pay essential bills with your legit income. This guy drugs. Context. I work in a hospital as a nurse's aide and my department focuses on transporting patients around the facility for tests and room changes. I work night shift and this person started their shift at 6 a.m. There was this lady I worked with that just had the nastiest attitude. Normally I can get along with most folks, but this person just brought the whole room down with negative vibes. Nothing was ever good and she always had bad shifts. One thing she did that upset a lot of people was take patients down for X-rays and leave them down there to return to our office. The big thing to remember here is that even the lengthiest X-rays take maybe 10 minutes at the very most. 2-5 mins on average for the scans. Every morning we got X-rays to do and I had to send her back down to return patients to their rooms after the X-ray technicians called right as she got back to our office. The instances of leaving patients were common, so I informed my boss several times in person and email. Apparently she had an attitude with every other department we worked with and never informed nurses that we were moving their patients. Big no-no when meds and vital signs need to be done. One day she had abandoned a patient in the awaiting room when they were waiting for a ride home and told no one, so security had found a patient just sitting alone for 15-30 mins without supervision. It took this and a year of recorded evidence for this person to finally get fired. When that happened, it's like a dark cloud lifted and a lot of people were relieved. Oh, and she tried to get various employees around the facility to sign a form to argue against her case. One person signed. Lol at the form signing. OMG. My deepest terror is that I am that person at work and that no one would sign that form. But hopefully neither of us are those people. Worked with a girl who would sometimes just lay in the floor and play on her phone. She would routinely flip out about something her boyfriend did and just start screaming curse words, sometimes in front of customers. She was eventually fired for smoking weed while on the clock. Every time I think I'm a fuck up, I read stories like this and I feel better about myself instantly. I had a manager once who dumped trash on my desk my third day there. She said it was to remind me that taking out the trash was part of my job description. It wasn't. I was a research assistant at a mortgage firm. Whoa. Had this same situation. We had a full maintenance crew, but my department had previously helped with parking lot trash until our hours were cut, which was discussed and mandated from corporate. The top guy for our location came in extra early, picked up the parking lot trash, and dumped it on my desk. Then he berated all of the managers in front of everyone for my department. Just the tip of the iceberg when it came that asshole, though. How does higher management not do anything? Are they all just as shitty as him? Higher management probably doesn't really know who does what at the company as long as it gets done. After all, it's middle management's job to deal with the peasants. Workers. Not necessarily a co-worker, but my old supervisor literally told me not to think, even if it's wrong, that I do things her way, and not to ask questions because I should already know what to do. I had just gotten the position. My wife talked about a supervisor her first husband had. When he, the husband, had an idea about improving their methods, the supervisor, who had a really strong Chicago accent, think of Saturday Night Live, the Bears, would say, "You don't think, I think, and you do." No contest. It was the little crackhead I worked with for 4 months that was also secretly living in the office and being completely nonsensical when he was actually working. We found a mattress folded up in the warehouse after he was let go and an actual brand new crack pipe with a price tag on it, to boot, squirreled away back there. He and his family, not just him living in the office, left discarded food everywhere like pizza crusts in the toilet brush holder in the bathroom. What even? And they left hair in the sink in the bathroom as they were obviously bathing in there, too, as we had no actual bathing facilities in the office. One day during his tenure, he sent an email saying his alarm didn't go off and he'd be in at X time, which kept getting moved back later and later. He eventually showed up at 4:40 p.m. and we closed at 5 p.m. Lol. See comment above about secretly living in the office. There's so much more I could go into. It was a wild 4 months, that's for sure. Edit, this blew up in a way I did not anticipate and I've gotten a few responses that I'm making this up. But let me tell you, I really wish that I were. His girlfriend was always around at work and she would move in a way that you would absolutely never see her face. We thought maybe she had a warrant out for her arrest or something. I think only one of us saw her actual face and she would also sit behind the warehouse bay door in their Nissan Altima, with it running, all day, for the AC, when she wasn't back there with him. He wanted us to hire her to help him, which wasn't happening. Our warehouse area was concrete flooring which didn't get cleaned often at all and she'd walk around back there barefoot. As mentioned before, he was completely nonsensical at work as well. He suggested to my coworker, who scans our old documents to PDF via feeder on our copier of course, that she should take a picture of each page with her cell phone and do it that way. I got multiple emails from him that made no sense at all and I eventually had to just forward some to my boss so he could see what was going on. It was a sad situation, but also a WTF situation for the rest of us. He brought his girlfriend to the interview and asked if she could sit in on it because it was so hot outside. Now, if we didn't have a Walmart and a huge shopping center within spitting distance, that might have made sense. But that was pretty unprofessional and they still hired him. All we did was lose money by employing him. He worked on one pro bono job we did and managed to fuck that up. This was at an engineering firm, by the way. I must be naive, but a crack pipe with the price tag attached, does it actually say, crack pipe, made in America with 100% renewable resources? I'm picturing the guy smoking with the price tag hanging off it, like when Chevy Chase points the gun at John Candy in Vacation. No, they're just glass tubes you can buy in a head shop and you stuff one end with Coworker and put the rack on it. You can buy them at most tobacco shops but you can't ask for a crack pipe or they'll kick you out. You have to ask for a straight glass tube, or a rose stem if you want a meth pipe. They're not illegal until they actually have drug residue in them. What's the difference between a crack pipe and a meth pipe? Well, never thought I'd ask that. Meth pipes have a bulb at the end. You don't light the meth on fire, you vaporize it by heating the glass. Meth has the ball on the end and crack is straight with Brillo in it. Finally, something I learned from my problem cousin I can use. When I was an intern, there was this old shrew who would call people into her office. My cube shared a thin wall, gossip, then call those people in to tell them what was said, etc. She would try to frame people for shit she did wrong. She was so arrogant, and she refused to adapt to workforce modernization. Example, she refused to learn how to hyperlink in emails, documents, etc. A real ray of sunshine she was. I worked somewhere in the last 3 years where they hired a secretary who refused to use a computer. I couldn't fucking believe it. In this day and age. I worked in a law office with a secretary who refused to do anything because she didn't know how. She couldn't do documents in Word, scan or use the billing software and refused to learn. In a crunch she would take things home for her grandson to do. Edited to add. Somehow she was hired on full time after being a contractor. WTF. When she was hourly she called in sick so she could just work enough to keep her Medicaid and government benefits. Should have hired the grandson, apparently. My worst co-worker was one I worked with when I was a cashier at Walmart. She approached me and asked me to cash out her paycheck. I was still new at the job and never got training on how to do that function. She was sympathetic, so she walked me through how to do it. Transaction over and done. I go on about my day. I get called back a couple of days later by my managers and they circled me in an office and accused me of stealing. After tears, videotapes, and telling them what happened, they told me that apparently this coworker of mine had stolen not only from me, but several other people that day as well. They just wanted to confirm I wasn't in on the deal. Fuck Walmart, and fuck that bitch for almost getting me arrested. I was a Walmart cashier, and some young adults. I checked them out. They came back and said I shorted them $20. I said I don't think I did. My drawers were always balanced to the penny. They insisted I shortchanged them $20, giving them the benefit of the doubt, because, shit, I've been shortchanged before, and maybe I really did. I'm not impervious to mistakes. So I called my CSM over, described the situation and said I'd like to drop my drawer and have her count it. Now the young adults are all, it's no big deal. We don't want to be any trouble or waste any time. And of course you know the ending. Those two guys were working a con on me. Or trying to. CSM counted my drawer, and it balanced to the penny. The conman left, and my CSM said I did the right thing. I was right. I didn't shortchange those bastards. Your story about the girl conning you with cashing the check reminded me of those dudes trying to con me. Sorry she got the best of you. Man, it sucks that they tried to scam you, but it makes me happy that you were completely willing to have your manager count the drawer. I was once shortchanged at a cheap-ass buffet when I was in high school, and wasn't even upset about it. It was a $5 buffet. I paid with a $20. Cashier handed me $5 change. I paused for a second, because I thought maybe I had been mistaken, but then felt sure I hadn't even had a $10. Again, not even upset. Brain farts happen. And I said, oh, didn't I give you a 20? No, you gave me a 10. The cashier spat immediately. I was a bit taken aback by the shit attitude of the cashier and just said okay and walked away. Manager came to our table while we were eating and apologized, handing me a 10. Bitch. My girlfriend had the opposite happen to her one time at GameStop. She bought a $10 Nintendo card, and paid with a $20, and asked for a few singles with the change. The cashier said, you mean like a 10, a 5, and 5 ones? She said yes. So the cashier sold her the Nintendo card, and gave her $20 in change. A $10 bill, a $5 bill, and $5 one bills. We didn't realize what the cashier did until it was far too late to rectify. I paid for some smokes with 100 and some snacks. So back then the total was less than $15. The very young cashier counted my change out to $80, then hesitated, then counted out 2 more 20s and the $6 or $7 of small bills on top of that. I had to walk a very confused young man through the math and make him take the $40 back. I still don't think he fully understood what I was saying. A free $40 would have been nice, but it was obviously the kid's first job and I don't roll that way anyway. Didn't want the poor guy getting screamed at when his till came up short. Hired a cook on a good recommendation. He was just fine the first 2 weeks. Then I noticed food going missing. Then supplies started going missing. Then a customer told me that he had been adding auto 30% tips his food per cases. When I looked at the books, I saw that he had been adding 30% tips to all the credit card sales, and the cash rings were off from what should have been sold. I fired him that day. The next day he came in and apologized. Said he was on drugs and was going to rehab. I wished him well. Then next day he tried to break in after close and was caught. Idiot. Me reading your comment. I hired a cook. Oh, this is going to be about drugs. As a former cook and dishwasher, it could have also been about assault with a deadly weapon while on the clock. Constant sexual assault harassment. Stalking the underage hostess. Cussing out customers constantly, dropping ice in the deep fryer, constantly throwing knives and screaming hot pans at the dishwasher, bringing illegal firearms to work, stealing from coworkers, etc. Goddamn FNG. Please tell me you haven't actually seen all of those. I've seen all that and more. When I was a dishwasher in Southern California, I used to have drunk, coked out cooks chuck 500F frying pans at my head and throw knives at me to wash. I also worked for a 60-year-old South chef who would constantly talk about fucking the 16-year-old hostess. But it's okay because the legal age is 16 in NZ. He would say, I lived in NZ back then. That all stopped when our tweaker, Bogan Cook, threatened to slit the South chef's throat. Because that girl was his best mate's little sister. I knew a 30-year-old manager who was fucking a 17-year-old hostess. The girl was using the attention to gain more profitable shifts and job perks like leaving early. This pissed off all the other servers and hostesses, so they ratted them out and got both fired. Restaurant drama is unreal. Customers have no idea all the shit that's going on right under their noses. I'm a teacher now. Last year I was a part-time teacher and worked as a waiter, dishwasher, busboy in the evenings. Most of my 7th graders were more mature than my co-workers. Guarantee he/she has. I worked in small family-owned restaurant from 14-18 years old. I saw it all. Drugs, fights, stabbings and sexual harassment were very common. Okay, I only witnessed one stabbing. A dishwasher stabbed a cook in the leg with a cooking fork. Cops were not called because he had it coming. He really did though. The guy was an asshole picking on a guy with special needs. I worked in childcare, and they had hired a new assistant trainee teacher for my room. Each room has 2 teachers. She just constantly argued about the dumbest shit, and always tried to argue with me about both company and state childcare policies because that's dumb. Also was late every day her first week there. It all just started adding up until I was changing diapers and she was holding a 2-year-old child on her lap. I see a child biting another child and say you need to go help them, as I have a child in the middle of a very explosive poopy diaper change up on the changing table and can't leave him there obviously. She doesn't get up. I repeat it. And she says, well, I have this kid on my lap, so I say take him off your lap. She responds, he's strong, like this grown-ass adult is unable to move a 2-year-old off her lap because of some weird super strength. Then the child bites the other child again, and at that point I'm mad and tell her to get up and help them now. She then proceeds to say, so what? I have to watch these 4 kids while you just have one up on the table. Like I'm somehow supposed to have multiple children on the table at once to make her job of sitting on the floor making sure kids don't get bit twice in a row easier. And our ratios were 4-to-1 anyways. I finished my diaper change, stuck my head out the door to my supervisor and told her get this lady out of my room, and they did after and wrote her up after reviewing the footage of the incident. She was fired for no call no showing the next week. I've worked with a lot of idiots in childcare, but she was so shitty in such a short amount of time. Oh man. I had a short stint in childcare and had to quit because of the lack of help. I wish I would have had a room of 4 toddlers with another teacher. We would have done so well. Instead I was stuck in a class by myself with 7 toddlers. One of which was a serial biter, and there was nothing I could do come diaper changing time except watch in horror and try to hurry up. I felt like shit having to constantly talk to the victims' parents about each incident, and I begged my director for help, but she wouldn't hire another teacher. Who knows why? I just texted her one day after work saying I was done and wouldn't be back. It was terrible. We normally had 8 kids with 2 teachers, but the numbers were low that day. I've worked in a place where I was the infant teacher and they kept it at 8-to-1. Even with newborns. They got in trouble from licensing a lot for it lol. We had a serial biter there too. They're so emotionally draining. He finally got kicked, pulled out. I'm not sure which. When a kid almost needed stitches from the bite.